Star Wars is opening this Friday? You're kidding me.
This is the first I've heard of it.
Where have I been?
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob.
And this is Kai.
So we're recording this a few days before Star Wars The Force Awakens officially hits theaters. And I thought it would be prudent to, sit down and sort of reassess our expectations for the new film. And then, of course, we'll do a post-release review after the opening weekend to sort of reflect on our thoughts on the film. But, I wanted to get Kai in here to just kind of touch base on what are we thinking going into this? Because like I said, I'm going to be posting this the day the film comes out nationwide. I don't know if it's worldwide at that same day or if it's sprinkling its international release out a little bit. But
that's just mean to other places, then, isn't it?
Well, sometimes other overseas territories get it first, actually.
Well, right. But I'm just saying that with Star Wars, that's mean to make the other countries wait for this movie.
Yeah.
If the U.S. is going to get it first, geez. Make everybody get it at the same time. Make it fair. Everybody's clearly dying to see this movie, so...
So let me ask you. First of all, it makes sense for me to start right from the beginning. So what are our connections? Is our experience with this franchise? So for me, I'm 32 and I didn't really even get into this franchise really until I was in high school with the special editions. So of all the purists who are like, oh, I want the original untampered with version of the movie, that's actually not the version that I really grew up with, because I really got involved in this world with the special editions, even though I some of the changes are questionable. Greedo shooting first. That's kind of the version of the movies that I really drew me in initially before the prequels. And since then, of course, my fandom has exploded hugely to the point that I have a Star Wars poster I'm staring at right now, a couple other Star Wars figurines and collectibles, my Blu-ray set sitting over there, a couple of t-shirts in my collection. So, it's probably the film franchise that I hold the closest to me, with the only possible contender really being the Batman franchise, which I also have a poster of on my wall. So once I heard about Lucasfilm being purchased by Disney, I was instantly ecstatic. And the fact that everything I've heard about The Force Awakens going into it, from J.J. Abrams coming on board to, news that the original trilogy cast was going to be taking part in it, and John Williams coming back to score it, and all the marketing materials that have come out, I'm really excited and really hoping that this can redeem the franchise from the prequels. And then that's, I feel weird saying that because I'm not one of those people that totally bashes the prequels and thinks they're totally devoid of any worth whatsoever and giant pieces of shit. I actually am a moderate defender of Attack of the Clones and kind of a staunch defender of Revenge of the Sith, minus 2 or 3 really awkward moments, usually involving Anakin and Padme. But yeah, so I sort of see the prequels and the original trilogy in a little bit of equal measure, and I love them all, even though Phantom Menace is admittedly not a good movie. It's sort of like the black sheep of the family that you're like, all right, you're invited to Thanksgiving, but keep your mess of a life to yourself while you're there. So that's where I'm coming from. So I'm all excited here and dragging Kai along with me on Friday night. So what is Kai? What is your connection to the franchise, and when did you first see the films, and what were your thoughts when you heard that they were making this?
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. But one question I wanted to ask you though is, so you really know about the movies? You didn't really watch the movies till the special editions came out. Did you know a lot about Star Wars before then? Or was it just on the periphery?
It was mostly on the periphery. Neither of my parents are huge geeks into this kind of thing. They like Star Wars all right, but it's never, they're not the type of people that saw it in theaters and was all about it, that kind of thing. So I didn't really, and I'm the older of the two kids in the house. So, my brother got into it probably around the same time I did, and he's the one that actually dressed as Darth Vader for Halloween and had the toys and grew up more with the video games and that kind of stuff. And I had played some of the games, and I was of course familiar with Darth Vader and I'm Your Father and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't really remember seeing the movies and then making an impression until actually they announced the special editions. So I guess we're like late. I guess by this point we're probably mid to late '96, and my parents and I actually rented the VHS copies of the original versions, like all in a weekend, I think, and watched them all pretty much, or within a couple weeks of each other or something. I forget, but that was the first time I watched them. And I was like, oh wow, these are actually really good. And then I saw all three of the special editions. So yeah, I was a little bit of a late bloomer, I guess, when it comes to my Star Wars fandom.
But it's also, both me and you, we weren't part of that time. I mean,
well, we were
when the
born,
last movie came out,
yeah,
we were born.
We were like, yeah, the Return of the Jedi was in theaters when we were born, actually. So
yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's accurate to say you were a late bloomer because it wasn't part of your.
Well, but I mean, as far as a lot
thing.
of 30-somethings that grew up with it as being 7 years old and.
But maybe that's because of their parents, because that
maybe that, and that's why I qualified it with the fact that my family, Star Wars was not like a thing in our household until until I saw it and then kind of made it a thing, I guess.
Right, exactly. So it's like, I was exposed to 80s films in the early 80s because of my parents.
I also didn't see any John Hughes movies until the last few years, except for Weird Science.
Yeah, so my parents and my, family friends had exposed me to early 80 movies,
exactly.
But I wouldn't have really known about them unless... And even you give me a hard time now. We're like, you've never seen them? I'm like, no, I've never seen that. I know that I was 4, but still. Anyway, I digress. So, that's an interesting point because that's how it was with me. I mean, my parents weren't really into Star Wars. I didn't even have a television. So I didn't spend a lot of my time watching TV.
So did you grow up in Amish country or what?
No, my parents were hippies and didn't want us to have television.
Were they hippies to the point that they were anti-Star Wars? They're like, that's establishment. We're into like Easy Rider and shit like that.
No, well, what I was gonna say is that when I was younger, me and my sister used to play with Barbies, and we had Star Wars figurines in our Barbie kit, which I don't know where they came from. They must have come from my parents, or maybe our parents got them from somebody else. But we had like Star Wars figurines. So we had
the little small ones, like 3 or 4 inches tall.
Yeah, so we had Han Solo and definitely Luke Skywalker. But I don't think we had Princess Leia or Darth Vader. I think it was really just Luke Skywalker and Han Solo.
So was Barbie the Princess Leia of the group? It sounds like it.
No, they would be like we had Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. We pretended that they were the kids because they were smaller than the Barbies.
Okay, that's good because I was imagining you could be like, oh, Han and Luke, that's the gay couple that lives next door to Barbie or something. Well,
being that young, I don't think I even knew. There were gay people,
right.
But no, they were like the kids of the Barbies because they were smaller. So we played with our Star Wars figurines, and I was just like you. I knew about Luke. I am your father.
Yeah, it was such a prominent thing in pop. I mean, it still is such a prominent thing in pop culture that it's like, how do you grow up not knowing Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and may the Force be with you and all that? Because the funny thing is, we both grew up actually with Spaceballs way more than Star Wars, which is strange.
See, and I think that's why. I thought for a long time that Spaceballs was very similar to Star Wars, but the genius of Mel Brooks is he doesn't do complete satire. Like, he does a satire, but he makes his own story.
Right.
Unlike a lot of the satirical movies now, they're kind of
just
frame
like,
by frame.
Hey, well, they're talking about, like, date movie and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, hey, remember Paris Hilton? This is like Paris Hilton. She says that's hot, and then she goes away. Yeah, right. That's ridiculous. No, and it's funny. That's a good point about Spaceballs because I actually have, I have that on DVD as well. And on the commentary, he even talks about how some people just love the movie as just like a fairy tale type movie and not even really paying attention to the Star Wars parody elements of it. Okay, so when did you first see the movies?
I first saw the movies when I was 13 years old.
Oh, so that's around the same time as me.
Before the special editions even were ever going to be released.
Right.
My mom's boyfriend at the time owned... Well, I guess my mom owned them. Had the 3 Star Wars movies on VHS, and my boyfriend was like, "Oh, these are such good movies. You should see them."
See, he knew what was up.
So, because he was the one that grew up on them, so I was watching them like, okay, it's all right. And I think by the 3rd one, I didn't even remember what happened. I did know about the Princess Leia and Jabba the Hutt scene.
Oh, the slave Leia thing.
Yeah, I already knew.
Did I tell you that?
And that's because of Friends, I think.
Did I tell you? Oh, right. Of course, naturally. Did I tell you that reportedly Disney is like squashing the whole slave Leia thing? Like they're going to remove all of that from like the licensed merchandise and that kind of stuff?
No.
Which I think makes sense. I mean, it's kind of degrading to women. I mean, in the context of the movie, I don't think it's a big deal because, she's captive and she rises up and she actually kills him. So in a way, it's sort of strangely empowering. Like, she's degraded as like objectified in Jabba's palace, and then rises up. It's like, screw you can't treat me this way, and strangles Jabba. Spoilers, I guess. But if you're gonna see The Force Awakens and you haven't seen Return of the Jedi, you have a problem.
It's been 30 years, people.
Yeah, get on it. So yeah, they're actually doing that. So that's interesting.
All right, well, interesting. So it's gonna be taken out of the movie?
Not out of the movie, but like they're not gonna really be making toys that are like Slave Leia.
They were?
Oh yeah, there's figures of her in that outfit and like statues
well,
and all
I think
that
that's
kind
good
of stuff.
because if Star Wars is also going to be marketed to children,
right. I wonder if
it's the same thing with Fat Bastard from
Kathleen Kennedy is like this big time producer in Hollywood. She's actually now like head of
Steven Spielberg's wife or something,
or worked with him on something. I don't know. She's actually head of Lucasfilm now, so I wonder if she had the fact that there's now a woman in charge, and maybe that's part of the reason she's like, first of all, no more Slave Leia. The fuck is that? Secondly, did I show you? I think I did tell you about this. That I think Vulture.com, I hope I'm saying the right website. Had the video of all the females speaking roles that weren't Leia in the original trilogy, and it was like 90 seconds.
Oh yeah, I think you told me
There's
that.
basically, and it's like 80% Aunt Beru from the first movie being like, Luke, and shit like that. Because there's essentially, there's Leia, and then with maybe two small, Aunt Beru, and then there's Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi for like one scene. There's essentially no female presence in those movies whatsoever. Everybody's a dude. So I wonder if having
Kathleen alien dudes.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if having Kathleen Kennedy in place sort of helped balance that out a little. She's like, all right, well, we need to modernize this. And now you have Rey is in there, and now you have John Boyega to put a little more diversity into it. So it's not all just white men anymore. And Felicity Jones is coming in as the lead in Rogue One. That's coming out next year. So they're creating a much more multi-dimensional world as far as like there's women, there's black guys, there's Asian people, blah, blah, blah.
But see,
which I think is good because it reflects in today's reality a little more closely.
But to the point though, wasn't it also showing diversity just by having an alien species represented? Because it had a lot of aliens in the movie,
I guess,
which were not considered aliens. They were considered, of that planet.
Right.
But they just look different than the.
Well, but they're not representing the diversity of our world.
That's exactly how I feel about Superman. I mean.
What do you mean? What about it?
Superman's still an alien. I don't think he represents people on this planet.
But they cast a white guy in.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So you think they should cast a black guy as Superman? Is that what you're saying?
They could do that too.
Mix it up.
I mean, but he's still being an alien.
I mean, now that's not going to happen.
Being an alien.
That's not going to happen for another 10, 15 years until like reboot the DC, because now you got Henry Cavill in place.
Oh, they can do what they do with Spider-Man and just reboot it again after 5 years.
But I don't think that's we're getting way off topic. I don't think that's DC's plan because they're doing this whole giant schedule of films. And anyway, back to Star Wars. So that's where you're coming from, is just having seen them as a kid and then not really seeing them much until we watched it recently, I guess, right?
Right, yeah. I saw Revenge of the Sith in the movie theater when it came out, and that was it. That was my only introduction to the prequel.
You hadn't seen the other two prequels?
No, but I heard they were horrible. At least I definitely heard the first one was horrible.
Okay.
And but I remember being 14 years old, and the Phantom Menace was coming out, and you have Natalie Portman and on the cover of YM magazine, her Star Wars gear, and I was like, oh yeah,
her crazy hair and her painted face. And,
and so then yes, I didn't see them really in their entirety and where I actually remember what happened in the original movies until we watched them recently.
Okay, so I mean, I think it's pretty clear to listeners that I love all the films, even Phantom Menace to a lesser extent, obviously. But 3, 4, and 5 are the ones I love the most. I actually like 3 a little bit more than 6. I know that's controversial. But as far as coming to the movies with relatively fresh eyes, what was your impression of the saga or each trilogy, and what was your favorite and least favorite of the 6?
Well, my impression of it was, I mean, they're definitely interesting. I don't, honestly, okay, this might sound blasphemous, and I know I had mentioned this to you while we were watching the movie, but watching the 4th one, or, the original one, I didn't really see what the big deal was. I felt a little bit more invested in Attack of the Clones than I did.
Attack of the Clones, this episode 2?
Yes. I felt more invested in that one because I just felt like, yes, obviously the name of the movie.
You might get some angry tweets over this.
I know the title of the film was Star Wars, but I just felt like there was so much on the battle, and me, I don't know, as a female, that just wasn't...
Oh, the Death Star battle at the end?
Yeah, I just felt like there was so much about that. And that was like the main plot point that just... It didn't really engage me.
Well, let me ask you this.
But the second one was...
If there were more battle scenes and there were more ladies in the X-Wing piloting the ships during the battle scene, similar to that, would you be more invested?
No.
So it's not that. It's
and I'm not saying that Attack of the Clones I like better than all the other original movies. I'm saying that because I'd seen it at the time. Okay. I'd only seen the fourth one. And I didn't see the fifth and the sixth one.
Right.
So because we watched them in consecutive order.
We watched them in chronological order. Which some people feel like you should go 4, 5, 6 and then flash back to 1, 2, 3, but I don't think that makes any sense.
You gave me the option.
I did. I was like, which way do you want to watch these? You're like, just to start from the beginning, get it over with. So was Phantom Menace your least favorite? Like I'm assuming it is.
That was terrible. Like Jar Jar Binks annoyed me from the get-go.
Fun fact, I actually did like Jar Jar when he first came out, and my first email address ever was jarjar1983@aol.com.
Wonder if it still works.
Probably not. I canceled it a long time ago. So maybe somebody else has it, but I don't think anybody has AOL accounts anymore like that they actively use. So episode 1's your least favorite?
Yes.
Was there anything about it you enjoyed? The lightsaber battles, at least, or
the lightsaber battles were good. I liked Qui-Gon Jinn. I liked him. Too bad that he didn't have a very long time in that movie.
Spoilers.
Yeah. And I liked Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor. I liked that. Actually, he was a lot more interesting as Obi-Wan Kenobi than Alex Guinness was in...
Oh, really?
Well, because he died.
Because he was more vibrant?
Yeah, he died in the first movie, and then he's just a voice. That's not...
He's a ghost, though.
He's a ghost.
He comes back as a Force ghost. Come on. Okay, so what was of the 6, which one did you like the best? Like, how did the whole Anakin rise and fall and redemption story work for you, watching them in chronological order?
I think it worked for me. I mean, I'm going to say what a lot of people say, that I don't understand the midi-chlorians.
Midi-chlorians? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's like one of the most, other than Jar Jar, that's one of the most like maligned aspects of the prequels, where fans are just like, why did you do that? Because the whole point in the original, but the whole point in the original movie, is mysticism. And it's the idea that you're watching this movie, and if you believe in the Force and you train, you could become a Jedi too. But then Phantom Menace establishes, but you have to have these little things, these little organisms in your body that talk to your cells and tell you the will of the Force. Like, why overcomplicate that? Why can't you just let it be the spiritual thing that it is, instead of giving it a biological grounding it biologically? Which is why J.J. Abrams has come out and been like, yeah, we're not talking about midi-chlorians. And there's no Jar Jar in this. I'm like, thank God.
Whatever happened to Jar Jar anyway?
They faded him out. Actually, have you heard about the fan theory? Where some people are thinking, George Lucas has said that there were certain plans and things that he had mapped out for the prequel trilogy that kind of changed and got dropped as he went along. And so some fans are speculating, what if Jar Jar was actually supposed to be like an evil Sith mastermind?
What?
Who was pretending to be this idiot the whole time? Because there's actually moments where, he's talking to somebody and you see him like moving his hand a lot. So people are like, what if he's like manipulating things from behind the scene, that kind of thing. I mean, it all seems really far-fetched to me, but at the same time, that would have been kind of an awesome twist if he's just pretending to be like, oh, Mr. Jar Jar Binks. And then at the end, his voice changes and he's like actually working with Darth Sidious the whole time. Because remember, he's the one that is actually the one that is like, oh, I vote that we give emergency powers to the Chancellor so he can create this army. And so, the way, it's all Jar Jar's fault. So that actually would have made sense if they would have done that in Revenge of the Sith. But I think even if that was the case, and I don't think it was, the fan backlash towards Jar Jar Binks was so strong that I think it was just like, yeah, okay, let's not do that.
Yeah, and though I didn't see the movie, I remember that too, where everyone was talking about Jar Jar. And I also remember people talking about how racist the Phantom Menace was.
Oh, well, now that you've seen it.
Yeah.
The bad guys with their Asian accents, and then
Watto
being quasi-Jewish, like the cheap like dealer of parts and stuff. I
don't know, though, but I don't know if that was really intentional
I
on
don't know
George
if it was
Lucas's part.
either.
I mean, they're alien creatures. I mean, you're putting, But
you can see how some people get offended by it,
definitely.
At least, yeah.
That's why I'm like, okay, I can see why that this is the thought, but I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just they're building a character,
right, and then drawing upon accents and dialects that exist within our world and implanting them within Star Wars to make it seem more diverse. Just like, this planet's all, what do we have here? Rain. This planet's all snow, and this one's all lava and shit like that, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you see what you want to see. And we obviously live in a very politically correct
now even
culture
more
anyway.
So. Now it's just ridiculous. Anytime anybody says anything, it's blown out of proportion.
Yeah, like what
all
voices
over
was he
social
supposed
media.
to use for those movies?
It's just I think the issue is more the way that they lined up with the characters themselves. Like Jar Jar is supposed to be like, "Oh, you saved my life." Kind of following him around, almost not like as not a slave, but like he's indebted to the white man type of deal. You know what I mean? And then Watto being sort of like stingy and like, no, that doesn't matter. Credits don't work out here. Only money and things like that. It's sort of like the Power Rangers thing. It's like, the Asian one wears yellow and the black guy wears black. And things like that. You know what I mean? It's just the way it lines up.
That's what they call Power Rangers races too.
Which they're changing for the new movie. I mean, they're mixing it up. So now there is a black guy and there's different ethnicities, but they don't fall like in that way anymore.
So what nationality, ethnicity is the Pink Ranger then?
It's a woman, but it's still a woman, but I don't even know if it's a white girl. I don't even know. I forget now.
What do you mean? It's from
but the black guy is a Blue Ranger now. Like they're switching it up. It's actually the guy from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which I recently watched. So yeah, but so what's your favorite of the 6 then?
I did like the third one, Revenge of the Sith. I did like that, and there were some parts of Attack of the Clones I thought was nice. Like I liked them in Naboo. It was very visually beautiful and definitely the prequels did really well with the set design and the visuals. I mean, there was a lot of CGI in them, but like Naboo was really beautiful, and how when they went to Mordor.
Mordor's Lord of the Rings.
They did it again?
Mustafar.
I
could see how you could get that confused a little.
Mustafar. Sorry, listeners. That was very,
visually whatever, intense and stuff.
Yeah. So that was really neat. But
I do think all the CG has not helped the movies age particularly well. Because if you look at Phantom Menace now, you're like, wow, this doesn't look very good.
I remember I was watching the films recently, and I'm like, wow, this looks like a computer game.
Basically.
It's just too much CGI.
Which is why J.J. Abrams, with The Force Awakens, is leaning towards more of a balance between practical effects and CG, which hopefully can avoid that. Because the original movies, most of that, a lot of it they didn't really tamper with, just cleaned it up and removed some like matte lines, that kind of thing. But, the attack on the Death Star doesn't look that much worse like in the old version. It's just kind of cleaned up. And a lot of those visual effects hold up today. With today's technology, because it was practical, because it was miniatures, because it was stop motion doesn't really hold up, but you get the idea.
You're right.
So go ahead. I think I interrupted you.
Oh no, that's okay. But and then the fifth one, the fifth.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, Empire Strikes Back was good too.
Okay, I think you were like me, and you were a little bit. I think you felt Return of the Jedi was good, but not it was not nearly as good as Empire Strikes Back. It had all that Ewok mess.
Yeah, Ewoks. I didn't really, and then they were like had their celebration.
They're jumping around in the forest. It's weird.
That was just completely ruined the pace of the film.
I always thought that the end of the movie, and I think I put this out on social media like a few months ago, but I always thought the end of the movie, the final shot should have been Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda as Force ghosts, and then sort of ended on there, because it's really those three characters have been there from the beginning, and it's Anakin's arc that really rounds things out. Instead, that last shot is the Luke, Han, Leia, Lando hanging out with the Ewoks, sort of like smiling like goofballs, like it's a Christmas card. I don't understand why that's the last shot of that movie, but whatever. I digress again. So with Return of the Jedi, we last left the story. Vader had risen up. Spoilers. Has risen up against the Emperor.
Nice that you do that for the listeners.
2 seconds before I say had risen up against the Emperor and thrown him down that reactor shaft, basically redeemed by his love for his son, only to perish himself in, his last moments.
You know what? I actually didn't even know that was going to happen.
What? That he was going to die?
Like, I didn't know that that's how it went for the longest time. Obviously I knew, Luke, I am your father, and that was, for some reason,
you thought that was the
I
last
always thought
movie?
that was the last movie. I don't know, because I don't remember the third movie very well.
Right.
Especially, I'd only watched it one other time, and I was 13 years old, and I definitely tuned out. But so I thought that was the last movie, because I thought that was a great way to end the trilogy. No,
there's a whole nother movie.
Yeah,
in there,
I didn't realize that. Darth Vader died for the love of his son. I thought he basically never redeemed himself, and he just died bad.
Which well, the way I see it, the 6-movie saga is supposed to be the whole story, as Lucas envisioned it, is kind of the life of Anakin Skywalker. And then you see in the beginning of Phantom Menace, not in the beginning of Phantom Menace, but in that movie, there's this whole prophecy of this person's going to bring balance to the Force and blah, blah, blah. And then he ends up turning to the dark side. But ultimately, in the end, he does, sort of bring balance to the Force because he destroys the Sith. He just had to join them and be evil for 20 years or whatever before he could finally do that. And it's this cool, it becomes in a lot of ways a family drama about this father and his son and his children. And it's really a personal story on a certain level. It just happens to be happening in the context of this giant galactic, space opera, basically. So we left it there, and then, Han and Leia ended up together, and, the Empire was supposedly crushed. So now, in the marketing, it doesn't look like the Empire was crushed at all. So what's kind of what's your take on, what you've seen in the trailers, and what do you think's going to happen in this next one? Because, there's a lot of rumors and theories and stuff out there, but, just figured we can kind of put our 2 cents in.
Yeah. I know a little bit about the theories because you've been telling me.
Right.
Other than that, I don't read about it. But I don't know. It could be possible Luke is bad because we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen him in the posters or any of the marketing other than his hand on R2-D2.
Well, we presume that's his hand. I wonder if that's misdirection because
could be.
Who knows if Kylo Ren is really as much into the. Darth Vader's legacy and finishing what he started and all that stuff. I don't know. I wouldn't put it above him to cut his own hand off and be like, I got a robot hand like Darth Vader. I don't know.
Then why is he go anywhere? R2-D2?
I have no idea. I don't know much more than you do. Honestly, I just read more of what other people are thinking and saying.
Well, yeah, but why would? But is that was a theory that it could
no? That was me. That was me. Okay. That was me just saying it because we're all assuming that's Luke's hand.
Well, I would like to think Kylo Ren is not corrupting R2-D2.
Yeah.
Because we obviously know Kylo Ren is bad.
Right. Or do we? I don't know.
The way he's talking in that movie, it sounds like he is. So we're going to finish what he
What do you think?
started.
What do you think he means by that? Killing the Jedi? Destroying the Jedi? Or crushing the rebellion? Or It's all very vague right now because we don't know, first of all, who...
And he's got Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, I know. What's he doing with Oscar Isaac?
Hostage.
You just saw Ex Machina the other night. So now are you kind of like, hey, leave Oscar Isaac alone. He's a good actor. Because you hadn't really seen him in much either.
Right.
But we don't know. First of all, we know for a fact that Kylo Ren is not his birth name.
Right.
We know that Kylo Ren is. There's actually been talk of this group called the Knights of Ren that he was a part of at one point. So maybe that's how he learned to use a lightsaber, that kind of thing. So maybe that's some kind of offshoot of Force users. So there's speculation. We don't know if Kylo Ren is actually Han and Leia's kid, if he's Luke's kid, if he's someone else's kid, who he's really working for, how that all...
He's working for me. I've decided.
There you go.
So you bring up lightsabers.
Yeah.
So at the end of Return of the Jedi, I guess if they just, destroyed the Empire, and so, Darth Vader... Emperor Palpatine have lightsabers, and then Luke has a lightsaber, and Luke's now somewhere, being that or hiding or
whatever, yeah,
in the bathroom. Who knows?
He's got a massive case of the shits.
Yeah,
for 30 years.
Exactly.
He's like, oh guys, I'm back. What happened?
And then the trailer, it did look like based on just the voiceover that Princess Leia was getting a lightsaber. But is that why you think there would be a Knights of Ren? Because unless they're the only other people that would know how to work a lightsaber, since all those people are now in.
Well, as far as we know, I mean, it hasn't been made clear one way or the other if Kylo Ren is actually a Sith Lord or if he's just some other person who's tied up into the dark side. So I don't know. I mean, it has been confirmed that is Luke's original lightsaber, the blue one from Empire Strikes Back, when Vader's Luke, I'm your father, and he's like, that's impossible, and he cuts his hand off. That hand with that blue lightsaber. That blue lightsaber does factor into the plot of this film. And that's probably the lightsaber that Finn is holding in that one shot where looks like he's about to battle Kylo Ren. So I think there's definitely some legacy issues going on there, as if, things being passed down from one generation to the next or what have you. But I mean, my theory is, I know in the expanded universe is the fan, I don't know, most of our listeners probably knows, but it's the fan term for the novels, the comic books, the video games, all the stuff that supplementary material for the Star Wars universe that other than the 6 films. Those delve into this rich history where Han and Leia had twins, Jason and Jaina, and then another younger child named Anakin Solo. And Jason ends up turning to the dark side, and Jaina ends up becoming a Jedi. So I'm wondering if Kylo Ren and Rey are actually Han and Leia's twin kids.
It's possible. I mean, one thing I wanted to add, though, about Kylo Ren is that my theory is I do think Kylo Ren is bad. And the reason why is because, he's got a red lightsaber. Yeah, we have to have another Darth Vader,
Or something, yeah.
Yeah. But it's because when everything was happening in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, that was a family drama. It was kept inside the family. Nobody else outside of that knew what was going on with the fact that that was Luke's son. They didn't realize that they had patched things up. So as far as they know, Darth Vader needs to be redeemed for not getting to finish the job. That's my theory.
Right. No, I've actually been thinking something similar, and they've been dealing with this a lot actually on Star Wars Rebels. I haven't seen season 2 yet. I'm not caught up. I've seen season 1, and in season 2 they deal with, from what I've seen, the fact that Anakin on the Clone Wars show, and by the way, when Lucasfilm was bought by Disney released, had a press release put out that said that none of the other, like I was just saying, the expanded universe, none of that is considered canon, which means it doesn't count. It's not considered actual story that fits with the films. It's not considered part of the chronology of the story, except for the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and now the new stuff that's been coming out. So I'm thinking that they're really going to do a lot to tie in Clone Wars and Rebels to the movies. So in Star Wars Rebels, Anakin's former Padawan, Ahsoka Tano, who's the teenage girl that he was training during the Clone Wars, and she was his apprentice. She learns for the first time in season 2 of Star Wars Rebels that Darth Vader is actually Anakin Skywalker, which leads me to believe something that I've thought for a long time. It's like, once that happened and Order 66 went out there, and the Emperor and Vader wiped out all these Jedi across the galaxy, does anybody other than Obi-Wan and Yoda really know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, and therefore any of the connections between the other people? You know what I'm saying?
What? No. Can you clarify that more?
I don't think anybody, as far as most people knew, Anakin Skywalker probably got killed with the rest of the Jedi in Order 66. Because it doesn't take very long for him to have to put on that costume and to assume a new name.
Okay.
So nobody, a lot of the galaxy in general probably doesn't even know that Anakin Skywalker did not die, that he actually turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader.
That's a really, okay. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Which would build more onto what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, because Darth Vader became more of a
Luke didn't even learn
iconic.
it until then. So
Right.
it's not. It doesn't seem to me that in the Star Wars universe, it doesn't seem like it's common knowledge that Anakin Skywalker.
Right,
is the
because
dark side.
Obi-Wan Kenobi went into hiding.
Right.
And so did Yoda.
Right.
So yeah, that's true. And Mace Windu had already died. And
But and Kathleen Kennedy has said that the main Star Wars movies, Star Wars Episode 7, 8, 9, that kind of thing, what distinguishes them from the spin-off films like Rogue One, like the Han Solo movie that we're getting, is that it does continue the story of the Skywalker clan. Like it does, it's going to, like you were saying, it's like the prequels are about Anakin Skywalker. The original trilogy was about his kids, so I'm assuming this would be about the next generation. Which is why I really think that Rey and not Finn, that would be weird. Rey and Finn, I mean, not that would be weird, but I don't know how you get Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and then get John Boyega out of it.
Adoption.
I guess, but they're not biological at least. But that's why I really think that Rey and Kylo Ren are going to be Han and Leia's kids. Like, I really think that's going to happen. And like, just because the expanded universe isn't canon doesn't mean they can't draw inspiration from it and use elements of it for the film. They're just not saying this is exactly what happened. Because if they do that, then where are they going to go with the movies?
But see, okay, so
it's like comic books. Like if they make a Spider-Man movie, they can draw inspiration from the comic books, but they don't have to be like, this is exactly what we're doing.
But doesn't that also piss fans off?
Sometimes, but I mean, it's also you have to learn. There's an art in adaptation. You can't tell that necessarily that exact same story. You have to condense it down into a 2-hour format.
Right.
Which Marvel has been doing a really good job with for the most part with their films.
Right. Well, one point though to your theory, and I could agree with that, is that growing up though, you would think that if Kylo Ren really is Leia and Han's son, that he would have already known about Anakin Skywalker being Darth Vader, would have already known that things were fine with Luke and Darth Vader. And
right.
So you think he would have known those things from his own mother, who was, Darth Vader would have been his grandfather.
Right.
I should say, okay, Anakin would have been his grandfather. So I would like to think that he at least knew something. So maybe with that being said, maybe he's maybe trying to help with things that he's doing in his own way. Maybe he's his own rebel.
The other thing that to take into account too is that from what I've heard, Kylo Ren is working with Supreme Leader Snoke, who I guess is like the new like Emperor type figure, and that's Andy Serkis play. That's the one you hear in the first teaser. Andy Serkis's voiceover. He's brought to life via motion capture because of Andy Serkis, so naturally. So some people are speculating that what if that guy is actually Darth Plagueis, who was Darth Sidious's master that he thought he killed in his sleep. And he's actually been pulling the strings all along from behind the scenes.
What? Oh.
Do you remember? You remember Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, and he was telling the story about how...
my master, and, telling about his own story, basically, and how he killed his master in his sleep, and that kind of thing.
So there's theories that that's Darth...
That's Supreme Leader Snoke, this new character that's been lurking in the background, that might actually be Darth Plagueis, sort of running shit, and then survived the attempt on his life by Sidious.
But wouldn't he have passed away?
I mean, who knows? These aliens could be. No, Yoda was 900 years old.
That's true.
So I mean, that's the magic of fantasy / sci-fi. Since Star Wars is sort of a hybrid, it's that you could be like, nope, you can live to be 1500 years old. It's all good. So that's something to keep into account. Maybe Kylo Ren, in his mind, maybe he's trying to finish the Sith off like his grandfather Anakin, who became Darth Vader, was trying to do initially back in the day before he got corrupted. I mean, we don't know. That's the good thing. That's the great thing about the marketing, is that they're giving us all these images and moments that we're like, holy shit, I want to see that. Holy shit, I want to see that. But they're not telling us this is what's going on. Not like Batman versus Superman, which looks like they just gave away the whole movie in that trailer. But yeah, so the chances that everyone is going to make it to the end of this movie is not very good. So who do you think is going to bite the bullet by the end of the movie? I have mine.
Carrie Fisher.
Really?
Yeah, because I think she's coming back more as out of respect, and I think it's like we've talked about before with some of these other movies where they're with like X-Men, for example, where they're doing like a timeline. So now with X-Men Apocalypse, it's just going to be all the...
It's free for all?
Yeah, just all the older characters that are now younger. So I think it's going to be something like that too. That's more just out of respect. Whether she dies or she just decides that she doesn't want to have war anymore, I don't see Carrie Fisher coming back. And you probably know more than me. I don't see Harrison Ford coming back either. I've heard that he's kind of already didn't want to do this movie in the first place. Like he's already been backed out of it a couple times. He backed out with the original too.
He famously was talking to George during the making of Return of the Jedi, being like, we need to kill this guy. He's got no place here. And then thought that would give him something like interesting to play. And I guess George Lucas was against that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Harrison Ford, who I believe was probably one of the last ones to really be confirmed of the main three.
Yeah, he's the one we see a lot of in the trailer.
Well, that goes into what I'm about to say. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, oh, I'll come back for this one, but just this one. Like, I don't want to be playing this again for another 10 years. I already did that. And that would also, to me, really play into why he's so prominently used in the trailers and the poster. I mean, the poster has Harrison Ford, like, right in the freaking middle, with Carrie Fisher right next to him. But Harrison Ford and Han Solo being such an iconic presence in these films and being so looks like he's going to be in this movie a lot, I will be super surprised if Han Solo does not die at some point in this movie. Carrie Fisher, I think they might hold on to, just because if this story really is about the Skywalker family, she's part of that, just as Luke is. So I feel like you might need them, maybe she'll die over the course of this trilogy in the next one or whatever, or maybe have cameos in the next couple movies. But I think it's worth enough keeping her around, especially if Luke isn't in this movie as much as... just because he hasn't been in the marketing, I don't really think he's going to be in it very much. Like, I think he'll be in it, obviously, because it's been confirmed, but I don't think he's going to have that much screen time. I think it's mostly going to be to answer questions and then to tease into the next movie more than anything
How many movies has he signed on to do?
Well, I think I read that he's coming back for episode 8, but that's all I know so far. I mean, they could pull an Obi-Wan and kill him off in this one, and then have him show up in cameos in the next couple.
As a Force ghost?
I guess, yeah.
Jeez.
So I don't know, but I think Han Solo is probably most likely to not make it through this.
Yeah.
I think Carrie Fisher, like I said, I want to see her interact with Luke. That's her brother, and especially if Kylo Ren is Han and Leia's kid, and Kylo Ren kills Han Solo.
His dad? Oh my gosh!
Might happen. I don't know. I'm speculating. Because, I mean, this whole thing is a family drama. I mean, Vader tortured his daughter in episode 4 and then cut his son's hand off in episode 5.
But to his credit, though, did he know that was his daughter in episode 4?
Not at the time.
Okay.
But who's to say that Kylo Ren knows that Han Solo is his dad? Maybe he was stolen away when he was a kid and grew up thinking he was totally something different. It could be like an Oedipus thing, like he ended up, and not Oedipus in that he married his mom, but Oedipus in that the story, the tragedy of Oedipus is that he ran away from home because he was told that he was going to kill his father and marry his mother, and he ends up doing that exact same thing, like accidentally, not even realizing that's what he's doing. So it could be like that.
Oh, wow.
And maybe Kylo Ren could be redeemed by the end of the trilogy. I don't know. This is obviously...
Just like his grandfather.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't seen this movie yet, because right now it's Monday the 14th, and we still have a few days till this comes out. But as we're posting this, people will have already seen it. So, I mean, we're just talking out of our asses.
If this movie was premiering in Australia, yeah, they would already be seeing it.
Well, but I mean, I'm posting this on Friday when the movie comes out, people will have seen it in the midnight screenings the night before, and I think they even have showings or at least locally as early as 7:30 on Thursday night. So people will already know the answers to this, and they'll be yelling at their speakers, being like, "You idiots! That's not what happens at all. You don't know." I'm like, no, I don't know, not yet.
Or they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, she's so right."
Maybe we are really on point. So I mean, mostly my expectation is that it does justice to these old characters. And if Han Solo dies or if anything crazy happens with Luke, as long as it's done in a way that's befitting the story and the characters and doesn't violate any of the the other previous films, like with a totally uncharacteristic turn, I'll be fine with it as long as it feels earned. And I mean, I already like what I see so far from Finn and Rey and some of the new characters. I'm excited to see that, and I think it's cool that Rey seems like she is going to be our Luke Skywalker. She is going to be like the main focus of this trilogy.
So what's Finn's story? We haven't really done any theories on who he is other than a stormtrooper.
Well, I've heard rumors that he's connected to some characters from the original trilogy. But I mean, based on the trailers, we know that he was a stormtrooper and sort of defects from the First Order. I guess, and joins the Resistance at some point, because we see him and Rey talking to Han.
What I don't understand though is why are there stormtroopers still? I thought that.
Well, we don't know what happened at the end of the after Return of the Jedi when Emperor Palpatine passed away. I mean, sometimes when a dictator is taken out, someone just comes up and rises and takes his place.
See, so they should have followed the Mockingjay way. No spoilers there.
Yeah. Well, our review of Mockingjay Part 2 is finally up on crookedtable.com, so you people should check that out. So, I mean, mostly that's what I'm just hoping, that it captures the spirit of the original films and that sense of adventure, but and fun without being like too dark and too overbearing, and really being inspiring again, because that's what it's so great about the original movies. Like, you watch that and you come out of the theater just like exhilarated by being told a great story, and it's just pure escapism. And I'm really just hoping that this one is better than the prequels. Actually, even if it's better, at least better than the first two prequels, I'll be fine with that, because like I said, Episode 3 is one of my is actually higher on my list than most people. So that's what I'm hoping for, and we're going to see it on IMAX, like not crappy fake IMAX, like real giant IMAX, like dome theater IMAX. So that should be amazing, and I'll be sitting there like peeing myself in excitement, I'm sure. So what are you expecting to feel in the theater? I mean, granted, you're not going to be...
I'm going to feel your pee under my feet.
Sorry. I apologize in advance for that then. No, I mean, obviously you're not as invested in this franchise as I am, but, what kind of movie are you expecting to see? No, just on a basic, like, sensory level, like, what are you expecting to walk out of there bummed out or exhilarated or disappointed or, excited to see what happens next, or, all of the above, maybe the different moments?
Yeah, maybe different moments. I mean, it kind of reminds me of a way of a popcorn flick, but not in the same way. Like, I think it's a movie for fans to go in and have a good time and get excited and know that there's going to be another one coming another year from now.
Well, next year is an anthology standalone ones, but then, so I guess 2017 will be Episode 8, which Rian Johnson is signed on to direct.
He's a Looper guy.
Yes, he's the Looper guy. So, and we liked his movie a lot, his last one. So I'm excited about that even more than I am about this one almost.
That's interesting. That's an interesting choice, because he has a very different eye for film than J.J. Abrams. I mean, J.J. Abrams was a good contender for this one, because
he did the same thing for Star Trek.
Well, that's why you like Star Trek better.
I'm not even. I'm not a Star Trek fan. I'll throw that out there. I'm not really. I don't have anything against it. It's just I never got into it, and I never really had much interest in getting into it. But although I do like the new Abrams movies, so I guess I like his take on classic sci-fi properties. And then Colin Trevorrow, the guy that directed Jurassic World, is doing Episode 9.
See, this is what happens when you make blockbuster films. Those people are like,
that made over $1 billion. That was a huge movie, Jurassic World. That up to now, that's the highest grossing movie of the year. Not for very long, because by the time people will be hearing this, it'll be well on its way to not being second.
So the theory is though that the Force Awakens is going to beat all records of all time.
Not adjusted for inflation. Because, believe it or not, Gone with the Wind is still the highest grossing movie of all time, adjusted for inflation. Because, I mean, it came out in 1939. And, tickets were, what, a nickel or something? So, adjusted to $10. And I guess everybody on the planet went to see that, like, many times over. But, I mean, not adjusting for inflation, I could easily see this beating Avatar. And making, what did that make, 600 million? Something like that?
Yeah. James Cameron beat himself again.
Maybe even 700? I don't know. I mean, this is gonna break records for the opening weekend, opening week, opening night. Because as you're seeing, I don't think last time Star Wars was as as big a deal as it is now was in 1999 when Phantom Menace came out. But you weren't with me yet, so you weren't experiencing, like, be like, check this out, this trailer. Look at this people thing. Look at this thing. Look, Star Wars is everywhere.
Oh, and there also wasn't no YouTube back
true.
then either.
There wasn't social media either. Star Wars has been constantly trending on Instagram and Tumblr and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff for a while.
Merchandising is crazy. Everywhere we go, there's merchandise.
Any store you go into, pretty much, yeah. There's Star Wars something.
It's like I was saying when we were watching the trailer, I already feel like I saw this movie because I see the merchandise everywhere.
You're like, I don't even know who this girl is that plays Rey, but I'm tired of looking at her.
I see a lot of the Kylo Ren and a lot of BB-8.
Yeah.
That's the biggest.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. We need to get our BB-8 Christmas ornament.
I don't see as much about Rey stuff.
I see her a lot.
Really?
Her and Finn seem like they're like the two main heroes of this movie.
But she's like a regular person. BB-8 is a cute little robot that looks like a Roomba.
Yeah, he does. He goes around. There's actually been rumors. I don't know if this is confirmed or not because I don't want to like say it definitively. But I've heard that BB-8 might actually be a female character.
Oh, nice.
But I haven't seen that confirmed one way or another. So we'll see. But and that makes sense because
is BB-8 gonna date R2D2?
That'd be crazy. That would make sense, though. That makes sense that you'd see merchandise everywhere because, I mean, the original Star Wars was really the blow-up of toys, lunchboxes, clothes, Halloween costumes. That was where this whole summer blockbuster entertainment
and that's what you said
started.
Disney wanted to really buy Lucasfilm.
I mean, because of the merchandising. They're going to make more money with merchandising than this movie will. In the long run.
They probably already are.
This movie will easily hit $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion, especially if it's going to hit the numbers that I think it's going to hit. But they'll make that from all the sales of all the stuff right now. In fact, I heard that they haven't even spent that much comparatively considering how huge a movie this is. They haven't really even spent that much on the marketing budget because they just have promotional deals, and that's like free market. That's like free promotion for them.
What do you mean by marketing deals?
With the promotional deals. So Coca-Cola, put Star Wars on your shit.
Or Cheerios.
Exactly. Cereals and like everywhere we go. I mean, we were at Barnes & Noble and they had a whole section of Star Wars stuff that I spotted from across the way. So
JCPenney, Star Wars pajamas.
Everywhere, every store you go has some manufacturer making some kind of Star Wars product. So Disney's making so much money just licensing out and like, here, do the Star Wars thing. And also many companies are lining up to do anything Star Wars because they know it will sell because people love this franchise that much.
Like so the gummy snacks.
Going back to going back to my point from a couple minutes ago, did you realize until this point how like huge this franchise is and how like everywhere it is and how beloved it is? Probably, I mean, it's not the highest grossing film franchise anymore because it's not adjusted for inflation, that kind of thing. Right now it's Marvel Cinematic Universe because they've had like 11 movies that are all made, 800 million.
And in 3D helps too.
Yeah, that does. So did you realize that Star Wars was this powerful a pop culture force, pun intended?
I mean, I did to some extent because Star Wars has been a part of my life forever. Because
and you're not even like a hardcore Star Wars fan. You're exactly. Like, would you consider yourself like a casual Star Wars fan? You're like, I watch them, they're good, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really a big movie fan in general, though. That's why it's interesting when I'm on these podcasts, because...
Well, but that's good, though, because then listeners get me being like, I'm so excited. But Kai, what did you think? And then you get to be like, well, I'm here with the more rational perspective, because I could just watch this movie as a movie and not necessarily like a life-changing event.
Right. But, I mean, Star Wars has been a part of my life forever, but... I've known people that have been big fans of Star Wars, but yeah, I guess I didn't realize how big it was. I mean, I thought that Star Wars was one of those subcultures.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I go to it's like Rocky Horror where people go and they dress up. Yeah. I thought it was something like that. And then when now with this, where I see every single person I know that loves Star Wars, and they're going to the theme. They're going.
You'll see. You'll see on like Friday over the weekend. You'll see everybody checking in theater.
But then again, you also gotta take into account that we're also in geek culture now. Geek is not subculture anymore. It is culture.
I have my top 10 comic book movie list that's on crookedtable.com. I have it titled "Geek is Good." Because it really, I mean, everything now that used to be like 20 years ago was sort of like, I don't know if I feel, I don't know. That's for nerdy people or whatever. Star Wars, superheroes.
Star Trek still. I mean, comic books, technology, video games, all of this is like mainstream. And now people look at you weird if you're like, what? You don't like Marvel movies? What the hell's wrong with you? Well, I think what is to blame for that is Best Buy with Geek Squad.
Really?
When they coined that Geek Squad as, you know, they were the geeks that were good with technology, that it kind of made geek culture
legitimized a little bit.
Yeah, because Best Buy is going around being like, Geek Squad, we're geeks with technology.
It's interesting too, because all those things, what's going on is that you're seeing people that grew up with all those things, you know, in their early stages, because when our parents were kids, the only like comic book or geeky related thing they had was like, you know, Flash Gordon, the old Flash Gordon, or, you know, the
original
black,
Star Wars.
the black. Well, no, I'm even saying that. By that time, our parents were in their 20s. I'm saying when they were
Flash
kids.
Gordon.
Oh, okay.
Was the Star Wars?
Yeah. I got you. Or like, you know, those old Ray Harryhausen movies with like, you know, stop motion dinosaurs and that kind of thing, or the George Reeves Superman television series. This is what they had. But when we grew up, you know, when 30 somethings grew up, we had Star Wars, we had, you know, we had the Michael Keaton Batman. Like, pop culture was really already gearing towards this type of thing. And you're seeing now the beginning of the creative people that grew up with all these different geek heavy elements in their childhood, now growing up and directing a Star Wars movie and directing, you know, Marvel characters in films, because these people grew up with this type of thing. I can't tell you how many times I read something or listen to a podcast and someone that's directing, you know, like, for example, Ryan Coogler, the guy that directed the Creed movie that just came out. He grew up with Rocky. That was like a thing that he had with his dad, that they went to see the Rocky movies together, and it was like a huge part of his childhood, the way that Star Wars is for a lot of people. So he grew up wanting that, like, and he basically willed that movie to happen, this Creed movie, to the point that then it was his take on it was so fresh and so like awe-inspiring that he was able to get Sylvester Stallone to be part of the project, and now he's probably going to win an Oscar for reprising the role he played like 40 years ago almost.
And isn't that interesting how that happens? I mean, we have friends that they've now made their livelihood, you know, being part of the Star Wars experience.
Yeah.
It's like, I love this film so much, I'm going to make this part of my life and part of what I get paid for. You know, I mean, they're taking that Confucius quote to a whole new level. I mean, that's ultimately, that's the dream, to take your passion and do something with it. And that's what you're doing every day, is you're writing about the things that you care about, and that's pop culture and movies.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid for it, and you're talking about it right now, and that's
exactly.
So there you go. Geek culture is in. Geeks are now cooler than me, because I'm not a geek. I don't know what I geek out over. So
you geek out over office supplies and
that's true.
Tofu and random things that most people are like. You're the real subculture.
Is not a subculture though.
Tofu is.
Oh yeah, I know.
You're the real subculture. You're like, I thought Star Wars was subculture. I'm like, I don't think you know anything about Star Wars then. So any final thoughts as we wrap up this one?
No, I think we said a lot, and we'll just continue this discussion after the movie.
Yeah. So Star Wars The Force Awakens, I could say this because by the time I post this it'll be true. Star Wars The Force Awakens is now in theaters. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. You can reach me on Twitter at Crooked Table.
And you can reach me, at the Vault Key LLC on Twitter.
Also like us on Facebook. Visit crookedtable.com for all our latest articles. This episode I'm putting up the day that Star Wars The Force Awakens hits theaters. We will have a follow-up episode that will come out on the following Monday. So the 21st. So keep a lookout for that. If it might already be posted, depending on when you're listening to this. But yeah, let us know what you thought of the movie. I would love nothing more than to get into a spirited discussion with some Crooked Table.
But no spoilers before Friday.
Well, but they won't hear this till Friday.
Right. Okay.
So we should be good.
Okay.
Unless I post this Friday morning, and then people are like tweeting at me like, I can't believe this happened. I'll be like, oh, not yet. I haven't gone yet.
Yes. Yeah, so no spoilers until Saturday.
Right. There you go.
till Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
So, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Cricket Table Podcast. Stay tuned for part 2 of this as Kai and I go over our reaction to the film, detailed analysis. I'm going to make her get as geeky about it as I possibly can. So, until next time, we'll catch you guys later. Roll credits.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CR double O K E D.